Well, I appreciate everyone for logging on. Aaron, appreciate the work that you've put into this. And also Lev, I'm sure Lev Gonick is somewhere in the air, right? He's always around. Just thank you for allowing me to share this story, and for everyone that's willing to hear it. So, yeah, I mean, the goal of this is to talk about perspective and how powerful it is. Sometimes we find a perspective in places that we never thought that we would. But when we do, it's so powerful once we have a skill around that to actually use it and to help others. So, I just reflect back and I'll tell you a short story on how EDWINS really came to be. Now it's just, this larger scale project that's it's quite effective, but, it wasn't always that way. When I was younger, I got into some trouble. I had ended up getting arrested, thrown in the county jail, and then facing a 5 to 10 year prison sentence. And what happened during that sentence was something special and unique. The judge gave me probation. So instead of having 5 or 10 years taken off my life, he gave me freedom, which is a very important lesson in all this. A lot of people don't realize they have freedom until you lose it. All I know is when he gave me that shot, I turned my back and just went out and tried to change my life. And I ended up doing so by running into a restaurant right on Woodward Avenue. If there's any Detroiters out there or anyone who's familiar with the city, right next to the Fox Theater was this wonderful restaurant. And I just knocked on the door and I said, hey, I want to learn to cook. I want to learn how this industry works. And I had a French chef who took me under his wing. And this is the beginning of my life changing, and this idea of building something that's a school or an institute for others, because I knew how powerful it could be. George taught me a couple things. One, that it was, he said, it's not practice that makes perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect. And I took these lessons and went off to a school called the Culinary Institute of America. That was his alma mater. He said, hey, you go here, it will help develop you into the next level of what you can be. And so I went to the school and realized when I arrived that some people didn't know how to make béarnaise sauce. They didn't know how to julienne a carrot. And I said to myself, so what the heck's wrong with everybody? How can you not do these simple tasks? And it really sank in now, this idea of a mentor. And not only just a mentor, but a mentor who was teaching the right way. I found myself looking for the best next step for my apprenticeship, which was Charlie Trotter. If anyone's from Chicago or has a big slush fund, I'm sure you ate there, okay? A great restaurant in Chicago in Lincoln Park. He taught me a whole lot. He told me that you can make it happen with what you have. So I said, that's great. I'm going to leave this country and work in France, and started working in restaurants in central France, then to the finest restaurant in all of Paris called Lucas Carton, a Michelin 3-star. And I was really on my way. So I said, I've got to be the best chef in the world. And so that's New York City, right? That little island that nothing else matters west of the Hudson. And I said, here, I'm going to plant my feet. I'm going to be the best chef in the world. And so I started doing just what you should do, work in the finest restaurants. And I was climbing the ladder, and it was 2003. I'll never forget it. I got a phone call from back home from that chef that mentored me. And he said, Brandon Quinton, the young chef you used to work with. And he said he's been murdered, stabbed, 24 times, found in an abandoned building. And Quinton, in my mind, was always that innocent person, really, really kind soul. We grew up making Caesar salad dressing together. So a lot of my innocence was lost in a kitchen next to this man, Quinton. And then no more than 2 weeks later, the sous chef got murdered. And I said to myself, here I am in this great restaurant, had traveled around the world, and what am I doing with this, right? I had to make a determination to change what I had and give it to someone who maybe had not. And so this idea of EDWINS was born, and that was about 2004. Eventually, I went back to school to write a business plan. So the idea is very near and dear. It's very personal to me, but I also it works because I knew it could work for me. It could work for others. And then when you talk about others, like how many people are out there with a potential issue or problem or roadblock, right? And when I was writing this business plan for EDWINS, I started looking into incarceration and this disproportion that we have in the United States. Right now we have 2.3 million people behind bars. We incarcerate 5 to 7 times higher than any other country. I mean, so when we criticize the Koreans or the Chinese or whoever our target is sometimes, we're 5 times worse. And not only that, we spend $74 billion to get there. That's 6 times more than we spend on higher education. So when you start to think about this sheer volume, this sheer inequality, right? I mean, it really blew my mind. But what the hook, line, and sinker was this idea of recidivism, or the rate at which you return back to prison. Okay, it's not a spice. Some people think it's a spice. It's not a spice. Don't go to Penzies and look for it. It's the rate at which you return back to prison. And over 43% of the people who get released from prison, that's 2.3 million people, when they come home, 43% of the time you're coming back within 3 years. So that doesn't make sense. Just the probability, the ratio. How can 43%, does that mean 43? No, its opportunities start to become less, and self-esteem starts to become even lesser. So this idea for EDWINS was born. And I thought, well, why not just build the French fine dining restaurant, which is what EDWINS is. So if you come to Cleveland, Ohio, you can walk into our doors, French food, classic, and receive a great dining experience. On the flip side, everyone in our program is either coming out of the criminal justice system or has been involved in this whole mess of what we call injustice. And they're going through a 6-month program. So we teach culinary arts, we teach hospitality, and we also teach business basics, so that when someone comes out of our program, they know how to save someone money, make someone money, and have a skill set that they can build a career on. Okay, the approach is very simple. Okay, we never ask about someone's previous offense. All right, that's step one. We meet someone where they're at. Okay, and then we take them to where they want to be, not where I think you should be. It's where that person's dream is, and how we can help facilitate that. And we do this in a very challenging way. Okay, with a lot of support. The first is we challenge big, right? And then we provide tools to help achieve that challenge. And what oftentimes happens is the person meets that challenge and overcomes it, okay? We do that in the classroom through ServeSafe, through culinary math. We're memorizing how many pints are in a quart, quarts to a gallon, and so on. We're looking through gastronomy and the history of food. We're taking this idea of what I could possibly do and blowing it up and knocking all the walls down, and then rebuilding it into the fact that you can. And the idea is to build a more powerful yes. And the faster we build this more powerful yes, the more likely we are to keep someone in this program. Otherwise, the temptation of the streets or some other extracurricular activity usually wins. So the faster we can build a more powerful yes with this idea of challenging and overcoming, with support, we wrap a really strong, hungry support around you, the chances are better that we keep you as a student and you succeed through this program and then become the person you want to become. Our classes switch, meaning, so when someone starts in the program, we'll start with the business basics and ServeSafe and this whole idea of the business. And then you get, put into the restaurant positions. You might start as a server, but then in a few weeks you switch to hosting. In a few weeks you switch to bartending. In a few weeks you switch to the kitchen, which is, the pastry area, the cold food, the saute, etc. Okay, until you work your way around the whole restaurant. So the idea of teaching to the top, just like Chef George taught and practice, perfect practice making perfect. Not only do we teach to the top, we teach the whole perspective, which is an important part because oftentimes in life, especially in our industry of culinary arts, you can oftentimes find yourself stunted, your growth stunted by a restaurateur who says, hey, it's easy. Jim knows how to flip the burger, so let's just keep Jim there because it's easy for everyone and it's consistent. But the problem is they don't ever ask Jim where he wants to be, right? So our graduates are able to get into a restaurant, know how to navigate the system and move up into a position that they want to. And if they're not getting that opportunity, they're also confident enough to know that, hey, this isn't the place for me and I need to move on to a different restaurant or different owner who can promote me with what I believe is possible. So within this whole culture, within this whole school, there's pillars. Meeting someone where they're at. Right? We never ask about someone's offense. Teaching to the top. We know excellence is always employable. Teaching the full perspective, right? You have to teach that full perspective to be able to give someone the way to swim through the sea. And lastly, we always care. And I'll give you some examples of how we care here at EDWINS and how we don't let little issues become bigger problems just by attacking them. So right now we have a class of, say, 30 students, right? And everyone has got an individual need, an individual desire. When we first started, it was much more simpler. We had the restaurant in the school, right? And we operated efficiently. And then came a need from someone, actually two people. They said, hey, we need housing. We need, a place to live. And they didn't say we need it. What they did was they slept on a couch or in a shelter or someplace that wasn't up to a standard that any of us on this call deem as high. And then they would sit there and memorize the grapes of Bordeaux or learn how to make these difficult sauces and just keep on struggling. And what I said very quickly was, this isn't fair, right? If any of us have children, we don't want our kids to get accepted to Arizona State, but sleep at the Salvation Army. So we care, and we care more. So we have to build housing. And it wasn't an idea of saying, well, let's just think about this and overthink about this and overthink about this. Let's just find shelter, and let's just find a way to make it to a higher standard. And how do you do that? Well, you look around. And then once you find it, what do? You raise money. So that's what we did. And in a matter of 3 months, had built a campus that's now 20,000 square feet. So what we have is an apartment building that has 21 beds. Students can live for free. We take $100 out of their stipend from the school, but then give that back when they end up finishing or leave the housing. So they have a security deposit or money to move forward with. We have alumni housing, a separate house for 8 beds, $200 a month. You can rent it out. So that way, if you need an extra step to get to where you want to go, we have that available. We also have a fitness center. We're right now in our library. You can see the cookbooks around us right here. We have the fitness center, basketball court. We have ourselves a campus, just like any sort of school or college with credibility, because that's what's important, is someone's health, someone's wellness, and someone's career. What does care also look like? Care also looks like training to the top, right? And providing elite skills. And by doing that, we also built out different classrooms, or you can call them classrooms. They're also businesses. So we have a bakery here, and the bakery is open to the public, but it's also staffed by people coming through our program. So now when they go through this restaurant portion of the program, they can come out to a real professional bakery taught by professional bakers, and they have the ability to learn this skill. Take it or leave it, you know how to make bread. You know how to make a cake, right? We also have a butcher shop right next door. So someone can learn the art of butchery. So breaking a whole cow down, a pig down, making charcuterie, curing the meats, what is bacon and how is it made? All these sort of mysteries are kind of debuffed through our classes. And so you have a very strong skill set in order to move forward in your career, wherever that takes you. So the idea of care doesn't just look like, hey, how can we help someone with a place to live? It's also caring about the level of education they receive so they can become empowered and go out into the field and really, really grow. We also have a full-time case manager on site. So again, any little issue that comes up, we want to bat it down as fast as we can, and so it doesn't become a bigger problem that stunts their growth or doesn't help fulfill their potential. So the idea of care is one of our pillars. It sounds easy, care, but it's about caring aggressively. It's about taking the space that people don't want to give us because it equals the playing field. But we do, and we have to care. Another part I didn't mention about our campus is we've built this kind of in the more vulnerable part of Cleveland, Ohio. It's the hood, okay? And it's an area where you don't find too much fresh food, nor is it a place you find too much positivity in terms of how you grow or what the limits or limitlessness is there to life. So we've decided to put this right in the middle. And so now we have a baker, a butcher, and all of our campus reinvesting in a community that has been forgotten. And we're so proud to be a part of it. And it's a very nice relationship we have with everyone here too. So when thinking about this whole idea of EDWINS and how it unfolds, it's really about putting the person who needs it most first. People say, well, who's your boss, or who does it? My boss is the student, because if I can fulfill their dream and help eliminate barriers and use whatever connections and mindset or however my gifts have been given, we can succeed and win. And that's how this program is driven, from the inside out. It's not a top-down approach. It's all from the inside out. So that's the short of EDWINS and how it was born, how it functions in the 6-month training program, working various positions where people get paid, to the care that's involved on the other side of it. Then there's the last part of this. Then we can go to Q&A. Is what's next, right? Like, what happens next? You have a model people are succeeding and so on. So here's what's next. First and foremost, we have nearly 400 graduates. Of our 400 graduates, less than 1% have gone back to prison. So that 43% fact I told you at the beginning nationwide, we're less than 1%. What we keep doing is developing stronger leaders. And these stronger leaders are now going off to run restaurants. And how do you think they hire? They're hiring with the same perspective of who they are, who they were, versus what education they received. Now they're starting to help mentor people in their own facilities. Over 100 restaurants across just this area they're employed in. You also have to remember, if we can dig deeper with this idea of developing stronger leaders, we can also groom other restaurants. So we started this management training program just this past year. It was frustrating to see the talent coming out of our program, the skill sets coming out of our program, yet there's still a glass ceiling because the color of your skin or because of this criminal offense that you had, and our graduates weren't able to really move up because they weren't given the chance. So it basically said, fuck it, right? And built the program within ourselves. So what we do is we have a management training fellowship, and a management fellow gets $40,000 a year salary. They manage each one of our businesses. So they do the payroll, they do the management, they do when the toilet clogs up, who's going to fix it, right? The real things that happen in a management and ownership position, they're now equipped to do for a decent wage. So they don't have to worry about other factors. We send you through management training at the University of Michigan. They have a lean leadership course. And the idea is to grow and then fulfill your potential in a management capacity so that when you leave here, you can get to 60 plus thousand a year. So it's a 1-year program that we're committed to. And so far, we've seen some great results. Actually, you'll see Greg a little bit later, who's a part of the program doing the cooking demo. So where do we go to next? Just continue to drive the depth of how great of a leader we can develop and take those leaders and put them in places where they want to be, and they can help doing the same things that we do in different places. We've opened up 2 other restaurants like this, one for the homeless, one for people in recovery. We've consulted across the country to help people develop their ideas into social action, into a business. And our grads are the ones really driving this bus now, which I couldn't be more proud to say. So Aaron, I kick it to you. I want to leave time for Q&A. I was hoping to hit it right at about a half hour, so fire away. There's probably a lot of unknowns out there.
Everyone's being super shy, and I need them to all raise your hand, speak up, ask your questions, everybody. Don't be shy. We got Brandon right here in front of us. We have lots of amazing conversation in the chat going on. We have one question from Holly. Does the judge who gave you a break know how you paid it forward?
No, I don't think that he does. Holly, listen, man. As soon as that gavel dropped and he said, "Here's probation," I said, "I'm out of here." I didn't really look back, but I mean, I'm sure I could find some records somewhere and reach out to him and say, "Hey, look, this is what happened." But no, I don't think he knows. The chef that mentored me does. I keep in touch with him, and he's very proud. And again, he didn't think much of it either. I don't think it's just what you do in life when you're in this business.
Fantastic. I have a question from Susan. I'm thinking about how to translate this into training for our student workers / interns. Would your approach be different based on the mentee's age?
No, not at all. I think there's a lot of intuition that you're going to have to use. You know that person best, or this group of individuals best, okay? But the idea of striving for excellence, I think, is within all of us, right? We all want to do something as great as it can be done. I would just caution, don't drop the bar just because they're young, right? I mean, we have a 5-year-old now. I mean, he's 5 and our daughter's 3. And it's like, we try to teach to the top, and believe it or not, the kid usually understands and gets it. That's 5 years old. Imagine what you could do with a 15 or 17-year-old, right? So I would just say consistently strive for the perfect practice, because that's universal in the industry that you're in. And this translates into any industry: healthcare, banking, manufacturing, you name it. You can implement these pillars of meeting someone where they're at, i.e. age, helping teach to the top in the career that you're trying to teach, show the full perspective of that industry, and care. And given those 4 pillars, I think you could take anyone anywhere, and that's the blessing and that's the curse, right? It's like, well, anywhere. Well, let's go to NASA. Well, let's go to outer space. Let's do it. It just takes hard work.
I have a great question from
Yeah.
Greg that says, what are some of the social change organizations that you partner with?
So that's a good question. So let's use that term partnership loosely, right? So partnerships are a funny thing, right? You know, and if you're in the nonprofit world, which we are, we have a sustainable business that does a lot of the offsetting for the costs. Partnerships are encouraged, right? And the only thing I can encourage is the right partnerships. Okay? So just for paper's sake or for some sake of, you know, the money, it's not worth doing a partnership with, right? If they don't have the same standard, they don't move with the same sort of care or swiftness. I mean, I have very few partners, okay? But the partners I do have is like a rehabilitation nonprofit called CATS, Community and Assessment Treatment Services, right around the corner here on Broadway in Cleveland. And I partner with them for a number of reasons. They're swift. I can call them up at 2 a.m. and say, we need help getting someone back on track. They can connect with sponsors and get them involved in the meetings and so on. Whereas other organizations are very skeptical. They've got to turn the cup of water 50 times before they drink it. You know, they dribble, they don't shoot. I need people who move fast because problems are fast and they get worse as time elapses. Another partnership I have is with a place called Passages. They don't like, I take everyone in the program. So there's not like the government, you know, grant world I have to deal with, meaning I have to meet a metric. So it's like taking the person who needs the most, that probably has the least possibility of making it through the program. But if they don't have this, what else is there? And so I partner with people who have that same perspective, that they don't care what the chances of this person succeeding are, but they know that the person needs it. And if they need it, get them in here and connect them and make it accessible and easy. So those are the kind of partnerships we have. So they're far and few between. And a lot of them are private partnerships. Like I've got a guy who does, or you know, dental work, whatever they call these people who do like the dental work, right? Not like a dentist or the major work. I mean, he's done $30,000 worth of work for free. We have psychologists and psychiatrists who help out, you know, for the sheer fact of making sure they get it right. The same thing goes for attorneys, private attorneys, whereas maybe a nonprofit for legal work doesn't help in a civil case. Well, then we go to our Rolodex of diners, and that one guy who really wants to help us happens to be a big-time attorney. How can you help? It's these sort of partnerships that I really value, and it's less about the paper partnerships that I think about.
Awesome. Samantha wants to know, how long did it take you to get your program up and going?
Too damn long, Samantha. Too long. Hey, Aaron, can you see me on my screen? I'm not seeing the video. You can see me though?
I can see you. Yep. It's.
I'll keep rolling then. All I see is Zoom. Okay, so how long did it take? So the idea came, and the plan was written in 2004. And from that point, it took till 2000, it was November 2013, the restaurant finally opened. So it went very slowly and carefully. I didn't have a model to point to say, hey, here's how to fast track it, or here's mistakes that were made. It was essentially building something from scratch. And I just really listened to people who were smarter than me. I now tell a lot of young entrepreneurs, there's 5 things you have to do, okay, to get your idea into action, right? The first is, you know, writing a business plan. Anyone in the business world knows that once a business plan is written, you can pretty much shred it, and it's called survival. But I mean, it's really important to think about, you know, think through what you're trying to do, how you're supposed to put it together, competitors, etc. But you got to have a business plan. You got to make this idea that's between everyone's ears, because everyone's got one, and put it on paper, make it vulnerable. That's the first step, and it takes work, right? It could take you a year to write this the right way. 2, you got to invest in yourself before people are going to invest in you. So make sure you incorporate. You have to have some sort of entity that takes up space in this world. So, you know, I decided to do this as a nonprofit because at the end of the day, my goal was to change the face of reentry. And that's going to take a couple lifetimes, not one. So why not build it so that it can last? The third thing to do is make sure you have a team. right? Like a real team that's, you know, in flesh and that's on board with your dream, and make sure that they're accessible. Make sure you have a brand, number 4. So it can't look like, you know, it's got to look sexy, right? People want to buy sexy. The 5th thing, this is where a lot of people struggle, is doing it now. You've got to start doing it now. And for me, it was starting in prison, which now continues into 13 prisons. But if you don't start doing it now, people are going to question, why aren't you doing it now? So it's going to take a little self-investment, get it started. And the last thing you do, I should say 6, is sell it. Now you go on and work on your spiel, your shtick, and make sure you're able to convey your message clearly and cleanly so that other people can understand what you're saying and help contribute to it. So those 6 steps took about, you know, 9-10 years. I think I could have done a little faster now, though.
Great. I have a question from Lev.
Sure.
Have the different trades that you've made available attracted persons with different learning styles and interests? Bakery person, the same set of interests as the butcher or in the restaurant?
What was the first part of the question, Aaron? Are people...
How have the different trades that you've made available attracted persons with different learning styles and interests?
Got it. That's a good question, Lev. You know, I can be honest with you. I don't know that I've seen a big difference. I think that with the visibility of the bakery and let's say the butcher shop, you find some people who are coming to this with the attraction of making the great cake or doing the, you know, the right, the right charcuterie but it seems to dissolve really fast in those first couple of weeks when we start to talk about, you're going to learn the whole perspective, right? There's the art of that, and you can focus on afterwards, but you need to see the whole field. But it definitely has increased people that are really like sweet centric, or maybe smoker centric. They want to make sure they want, you know, barbecue right. They want to smoke the right way. We see a little bit of that, but it's really the overall approach people still come for.
Awesome. I have another question. What would you say society, teachers, or family can do to prevent people from doing things that lead to prison in the first place?
Well, I think a whole lot. I mean, I would look at where you live, first of all. You know, did you move to the inner city, or you living in a suburb? I think it's really important to bring leadership back to the streets and to the communities that are most vulnerable, exposing ourselves and our kids to, you know, the pitfalls of what poverty looks like, and don't be afraid of it. I think that's number 1. I think it's, you know, getting to know us. I think a lot of the times, you know, people may not hire someone based upon what they look like or what their past is. And I simply stress, get to know people, right? I mean, it sounds simple. We're all adults here, but oftentimes people don't take that extra step to say, hey, this guy was convicted of X, Y, and Z. But why? And what lessons did it teach that person? And you can find out that's the most powerful perspective that money can't buy. It's just called the lessons of life. I really think those are the things. Just moving yourself into a place that's going to help strengthen a community with who you are, what you know, and your connections and your network, and making yourself vulnerable. The other part of it is really just getting to know us. I think if we did that in the masses, I think you see the needle move a little bit. I think what they're trying to do is better pad the idea that people are, there are needs for people, and they have to be met before someone can learn, and so on, right? Maslow's hierarchy. And I think contributing to that, helping those needs is another way that we can get involved, so the system doesn't become broken.
Awesome, fantastic. What other approach you to either starting a similar program within their own community, to their own communities, or revitalize their own programs? What are the essential core requirements that you're adamant they hold dear?
That the student would hold dear, or the person who is starting, like the organization that their organization.
The people starting the organization.
I mean, just make sure your priorities are straight. I mean, I'd say the one thing that I hold very dear is the most important person here is the student in the program, and take it or leave it. If you want to do a project like this, you got to be in 4th place every day. You wake up and you're putting your community and that person first. You're putting the business right there at second. You're putting your own family third. then you're going to put yourself there in fourth place. I think that the only way to overcome a deficit or an inequity is to sacrifice to offset that inequity. It's not going to happen through keeping your lives the same way, keeping them comfortable and doing the things that maybe you're used to. It's going to have to come through sacrifice. That's the only way we can offset the inequity to make it then equal. That's one that I hold very, very dear. It's sacrifice, 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 and it's building a life around that. And fortunately, I found a woman, my wife, who would take me for that, and build the other circles around me. But it centers around this person who needs it most in the program. I think without that, I think it's going to be very difficult to overcome, large, inequities.
Awesome. I have a note from Greg. Have you heard of Cafe Momentum? Sounds like you guys are working the same synergies.
I've heard of Cafe Momentum. It's, I think, in the South, right? It's in Texas or New Orleans. I know I've heard of it. I don't think I've yet to speak with the person who operates it or dig into their mission, but I've heard of them and heard of them doing very good work.
Fantastic. I have one last question. I know that you are heading out. Barney says, if given the opportunity, how would you scale this across the country? Also, outside of the restaurant sector, what other sectors could EDWINS program impact and transform?
Yeah, I mean, the sectors are endless, right? Like you could do this, like I said, in hospitals and banking, manufacturing and government. You name the industry. The idea is to, meet someone where they're at, right? Teach the top, full perspective, care, and get out of the way, let someone succeed. The idea of scaling for me is continue to drive that strength of leader deeper, right? And that, like recently, like someone from Philadelphia called, and now I can take a graduate from our program, and they can then help operate or run a similar program. But the idea of scale, in the term of scale's sake, I guess I'd turn the question and say, how come you can't? How can you scale the 1927 Yankees? Or how can you scale the Golden State Warriors? How come every team in the NBA are as good, right? So the question becomes this: how do you scale something that has its own ecosystem based upon its community that needs to support it, and then make this thing thrive? And I'll tell you what has to happen. It just takes leadership. All right, that's the single key factor of this. It takes leadership, right? If you have the right group of leaders in a community, that's the way to succeed. And that's all that we've ever, when we expand, we've done this, and like I said, we opened 2 other restaurants in the past 2 years. It's about finding that community that wants to put their best foot forward to help a culture, community, whatever it is that's ailing, to succeed. So that's where the key is. I've tried going into a very suburban area, and we opened up this restaurant for people in recovery, and we got a ton of pushback. Oh, we don't have that problem here, or how can people in recovery work around alcohol? I mean, there's so much pushback, and pushback is so much not in my backyard. That's not a place where this thing's going to really thrive, is it? Right? So there was a culture in that community that said, hey, we don't want this. Meanwhile, 10% more people die each year of overdoses in that same community. It was just they didn't want to recognize it nor give an opportunity or pathway forward. So scaling is terribly sensitive. It's not something you could jam down your throats unless every company in this country said, hey, I want to do this. Then the consumer would have no choice but to shop and patronize because everyone is doing it. But the fact is they don't. And so for me, scaling looks like developing the strongest leader. When people come to us to open up a project or in other industries, we help facilitate that either with, through me, through our team, or through a graduate who's really exhibited these traits to be able to lead a team. But it's a very good question. It's the same reason we're talking about civil rights, because we know there needs to be equality out there, yet the world's not equal. How do you scale equality? Some people don't want equality. unfortunately, this is a reality that we deal with every day with, you know, people returning home from prison. And you just got to fight and take the space, and it's not going to be given. So great question. Great question.
I know you have a flight to catch, so we thank you so much for answering the questions and being with
No
us.
problem. No problem. So, Aaron, we're gonna up next here. We're gonna flip you over to Jerry. He's our director of culinary education. He's been teaching in prisons. He's been doing it here on the outside as well. A wonderful chef with a great touch, and someone maybe even a finer touch. Chef Greg, graduate of our program. He's managed the butcher shop. He's over here making the dough, literally and figuratively. He's at the bakery. But I'm going to flip it over to them, and they're going to make the artichokes bear gold, our number one selling dish here at EDWINS.
Thank you again. I'm excited.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, how's everyone doing? My name's Jerry. I'm here with Greg. Today we'll be preparing artichokes bear gold. Like Brandon just said, this is our most popular dish, and it's been on the menu since the day we opened. So we're going to walk you through some of the steps of how we make it. One of the reasons this has been on the menu since we first opened is it encompasses what we teach at EDWINS is, at least on the culinary end, is techniques. And cooking is all about technique. So this encompasses braising vegetables, cleaning artichokes, making tomato concasse that you'll see Greg do, and knife cuts, specifically your brunoise cut that I'll point out later, because knife cuts are, you're not going to go anywhere in this business unless you can accurately cut some things. So what we're going to do is start off by cutting or cleaning an artichoke here. So it's a laborious process, but it's worth it to get the freshest possible product. So what I'm going to do is I'm just starting here by cleaning off the hard outer green leaves. Okay. We have someone at the restaurant, or students, this is probably 20 hours of labor a week alone just to clean it. If I have a sharp paring knife and I'm just going around, I'm taking off the hard outer leaves. It's also a messy job, so you might see a leaf or something go flying or scatter here. And what I have here in front of me is I've already cleaned a couple, and I have them sitting in some lemon water. What the lemon is going to do is it's going to keep the artichokes from oxidizing. So like I said, I'm not sure. We are probably cleaning about, 100 of these a week. So suppose, as you can see, I'm not sure how good the camera is. The leaves are getting a little thinner and a little softer. It's almost the point where I could start using my hand and pulling them off. So I'm going to I've left some of the stems here. I'm going to work my knife around. Get the hard stuff that I left at the bottom here by the stem. And what I'm going to do is take the top off. You can leave that there for a minute like this. I'm going to clean the stem a little. You can see this ring. I want this, it's really woodsy and it won't cook down. So I want to take out the outer leaves. Just like that. And then I'm going to quarter it and take out the choke. I need that, yeah, still. The choke and the artichoke. So if you see this hairy part right there, that's the choke. You don't want that. So I kind of just go in, cut it out, and then put it in the lemon water. Got two more. It's always fun to see, like, when we get a new student and they start doing this. I don't know how long that just took me, but it's fun. It's a great way to see the progression of our students from the first day they have to learn how to clean an artichoke until at the end of their 3 months in the kitchen, they're like old pros. So what we're going to do here is, what we're going to do, and this is another, it's a culinary term that we teach at the restaurant. We're going to sweat some vegetables for our braising liquid. What I got here is little carrots, celery, fennel, and some onion. What we're going to do is, we're just going to, sweating means we want to cook these till they start getting soft, but we don't want any color on them. And I'm going to add a little salt now right at the beginning, because what that's going to do is it's going to help the vegetables open up and release their flavor. And while I get this started, another part of this dish, and Greg's going to complete the plated dish that we do at the restaurant, but is tomato concasse. Concasse means it's a peeled, seeded, and chopped tomato. And it's a quick process. So what Greg is going to do is he's going to put a little X at the bottom of the tomato. And he's going to drop it in some boiling water. And what we're going to look for is the tomatoes you're going to start seeing the skin peel away. Now, depending on the ripeness, this is a pretty quick process. And then he's going to peel it, seed it, and chop it. Let's see how we're doing over there. Almost. So I don't know if you can hear that, but you can hear our vegetable base for our braising liquid just starting to soften up, and you can see it. I'm just moving around quickly so they get equally distributed over the heat. How's our tomato look over there? Oh, excellent. So here, let's hold up a minute. You can see the skin has started, where he cut it, has started shedding. That's what we're looking for. So now he's going to put in the ice bath. We're putting in the ice bath, that is going to stop the cooking process, because we still want the flesh of the tomato to have some bite to it. We don't want mush. So basically, then the reason you would do this in a dish like this is you get that acidity and the tomato flavor without, all the seeds. So our vegetables are properly sweated. I'm going to add our artichokes. There we go. Then what we have here is some veg stock that we make at the restaurant. And some white wine. What we're going to do is we're going to bring this up to a simmer, and we're going to simmer it for 30 minutes. Don't worry, you're not going to sit there and watch these artichokes cook for 30 minutes, because there's still something out there called TV magic. So we would cover this and let it simmer. And 20 minutes later, what we did today, I have that can of artichokes. Oh, you have it. What we did is we drained them. Now at the restaurant, we pack them in this imported olive oil from Spain. That's what we're looking for. So our tomato is out of the ice bath. We're going to peel it. So what Greg is doing now is all he's doing is he's removing the seeds and saving all the flesh to chop up. Because use a knife to cut out some of the seeds. There we go. Oh well. You don't have to cut that last quarter. All right, so now at the restaurant, when the order comes in or a guest orders, this is how we would prepare it. Go ahead and put all your mise en place right here to your left. And in the kitchen, this is one of the first most of our students, they might start down on like the salad pantry and they move up through the line. This is one of the first hot dishes that our students learn to cook because it's also very time sensitive. So what Greg is doing now is he's getting his oil hot. And then he's gonna sweat his vegetables. If you wanna take a look, this is called a Brunoise carrot. These are the measurements our students have to memorize. It's basically a small cube that's 1/8 of an inch on each side. So we have Brunoise carrots and onions. Perfect. And just like over here, the key to this dish is he wants to get these vegetables soft. What he doesn't want to do is get any color on them. So he's going to add in some onion. There you go. What we're going to do is we're going to add 3 artichokes because that's a serving at the restaurant. Gonna put in some of his tomato. Perfect. What we have here is another knife cut. This is called basil chiffonade. Basically, it means to roll and slice thinly. And some fresh thyme. It's gonna hit with some salt and pepper. And then lastly, well, not lastly, but a little lemon juice. And then more white wine. And then what Greg's waiting for is he's waiting, we want the alcohol to cook off of the wine. So he's gonna start swirling it. And then the finishing touch, because it is a French dish, is we're gonna, what we refer to is we're gonna emulsify some butter in. So he's gonna add some butter. We're gonna let it cook down just a little longer. What emulsify means is we're gonna melt the butter in a fashion that it doesn't separate. And ideally what we're gonna have is a creamy sauce. So the pan will not stop moving once the butter is added. Salt and pepper. So what this dish does is, one, like I said, it's one of the first hot dishes our students learn to cook. It's an appetizer, so we need to make sure that it gets out quickly. It teaches, once again, the sweating of vegetables. It teaches tomato concasse. we ask for really great knife cuts. And it also asks, and we're also teaching the students how to emulsify the butter in the sauce, which is what we're doing is we're keeping the integrity of the butter that it won't separate. By moving it quickly through the pan, you can see we don't have, the butter as it melted, like if you had melted it at home where it's separated, is incorporated in the sauce. So now Greg's gonna go ahead and plate it. Pour it all in there. Pour it all in. And then we're just gonna pour all that sauce right over the top. Because what our guests will do then is after they eat the artichokes, they're gonna use that bread to sop up all of that sauce. Thank you so much for joining us today. All right, have a great day.